everyone, for this Animation Friday I am going to be briefly discussing stop motion. In particular, stop motion animation, that is stop motion animation that's sort of used as a technique when it comes to displaying movement. Stop motion animation pretty much started the same time as when film was being first created. And the interesting thing about stop motion is that you can use it in live action settings and have these sorts of props that you use. But in order for me to ultimately explain stop motion animation, I should briefly discuss its definition. Basically, stop motion is considered to be an animation technique to physically manipulate objects to move around by having various images. So photographic images would be taken every step that the object would move. So it's like animation on paper, but in object form. Like the object would be moved by someone and they would take a picture of it, and it would be numerous pictures of that object looking like it is moving when it's really not. Again, it's kind of hard to sort of explain this just by talking about it, but if you take claymation, for example, like how they do the facial structures and things like that, it's all one spot, another spot, and they do this in really close-knit detail to try to get down the expressions and the emotions of a character, or to fully understand the movement of objects. So it is really an animation that's based on being object and movement oriented from actual objects rather than from paper, and having movement come from paper. So that's something important to understand when it comes to stop motion. Now, the interesting thing about stop motion, again, like I mentioned, is that it was used for live action films. It was used to have various setups and backgrounds. It was used to show various objects moving in certain directions. And it was a very prominent technique that was used. But in 1975, we see sort of claymation starting with this claymation animation experimenter, Will Vinto, who created this claymation film called Closed Monday, which was the first stop-motion film to ever win an Oscar. And really well-known films have used stop motion. For example, Star Wars has used stop motion, Indiana Jones has used stop motion, RoboCop, stop motion. They've all been a huge, significant they've been all used significantly, but they've been used more to the background of the film. It's not really the forefront, or it's not everything that the film has to offer. But that all changed sort of with, again, the first sort of claymation films, and also with The Nightmare Before Christmas and Tim Burton's films that came out in the 90s, which became really, really popular for their stop-motion films. And then Nick Parks, Wallace and Gromit and Chicken Run, who got funding from DreamWorks, became to be known as probably one of the greatest claymation artists of our time, because he was so focused on using this claymation stop motion technique. And pretty much the rest is history when it comes to stop motion. It's just been used throughout film, but I guess in just different capacities. And I think just now we're starting to see it take a sort of prominent role when it comes to animation. I wouldn't say that it is at the forefront. I still think that CGI will be the dominant form of animation, but that doesn't mean that stop motion is completely gone. We had Frankenweenie, and I think Paranormal was also stop motion too. So you will get these kinds of films that do focus on trying to be in this different style, and I think it really works to the film's advantage for being unique. It might stand up to CGI, but I'm not sure if that'll be possible or not. But it's, I think, all open to what the future has in store, and it's nice to see that stop motion finally became used as a real animation art form, by not just putting it in the background of live action films and just using it for certain scenes or set pieces. You know, it actually just became its own art. And I think that's just really what makes stop motion fascinating. It's just in how it was incorporated within film, and how now we sort of see it as either sort of claymation, or we see it as something that's within the background. It seems like that there are these two options that stop motion provides, but as to whether or not it's going to be as complete stop motion is going to be prominent, I don't believe so. I think it'll still be sort of a more underground art form, but it is still, I think, a worthy animation technique. It is a worthy animation art form to have, and it's good to see that this sort of animation is being showcased and has become fairly popular, actually, with, again, the creators of Wallace and Gromit, as well as with Tim Burton's stop motion films. But I think there has sort of been a detour, at least from Tim Burton, when it comes to making stop motion, but I think there will always be others that will sort of revive the, I guess, genre, if you can call it that, or subgenre, really, of animation. So it's, I think, all open into the air as to what stop motion can bring, but I think it's definitely worth considering. It's worth, I think, considering to look at when you look at certain bits like of Star Wars, where you can sort of tell, like, when the spaceships are moving, you know, you can kind of see how they tried to make it stop motion oriented because of their incorporation of stop motion. And you'll sort of see this throughout the backgrounds of films, but it's nice to see that it's becoming completely an animation style and a format to use. But as to whether or not it's going to be prominent, that's something that I can't really ultimately say. But I think it has gotten some exposure, and I think it's gotten some attention. And we'll see, though, really what the future has to hold. But I think that's really ultimately all I can say about stop motion. It's pretty straightforward. It's a art form that's been there since the dawn of film, and it'll probably be there until film making is no longer there anymore. But But I don't know if really filmmaking will ever die, but who knows what the future will bring. But I think that's all I can really ultimately say about the subject. But if there are any questions, comments, concerns, I'd be more than happy to answer them. But yes, that's all I think I can really discuss when it comes to this topic. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a great day, week, month, and year. And I hope to see you all in the next video tomorrow.